All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks, Tori, Chief Vibes Officer. We love it. Um, Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a good start to your day, or a good, if you've, if you're in another time zone, that you've had a good day. We're going to kick off our June Women in Business Chat, and I am so excited to have Kendall Moore here to speak to us. So, Kendall, if you don't know her, I'll give a little introduction. So, Kendall's been at Google for almost 8 years, and she is a strategy lead for the charter and private schools for Google Education. She currently lives at the beach in North Carolina. Who's jealous of that? Me. She lives with her husband and her rescue doodle, Mosey, who's super cute. They're going to be welcoming a son in August. So, congratulations to her and her husband. She's currently spending most of her time trying to decide what to name him and welcomes all name suggestions. So, if you have really good names, please put them in the chat. And maybe Kendall can get some good ideas from our Women in Business chat this morning. She is our Google client on the EDU side, one of them, and we all just love her. And she's going to be speaking to us about finding your voice and using it. And I've seen her do this for herself and for others in meetings, just in a way that is so beautiful. And I'm really excited to learn more from her about this. So, Kendall, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Tori, if you would go to the next slide, that would be awesome. Oh, I'm loving all these names already. Derek, I will not be naming him Austin. That's my boss. That'd be too weird. Okay, so I'm so excited to be here. Okay, so I know that this is a slide you usually see at the end, but this is truly where I want to start the presentation. I am so excited to be here. So grateful for your time. I have watched quite a few of these coffee chat presentations to prepare for this, and it is clear that you guys have some very strong voices at MarketStar. So I am like extra honored to have been invited to share my perspective here among some of the other incredible women who have been here. And you guys are already doing a great job, but I would love to hear from you in the meantime. So hit up the chat. I'm loving the emojis. It just makes me feel like I'm not just talking to an empty room. So you heard a little bit from Daisha, but I wanted to share a little bit of background on me. So you have some context to the voice that you're going to be hearing for the next 30 minutes. I grew up in a small town in Michigan. I went to Michigan State University, go green, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher or a social worker. I got an international relations degree, which is essentially a political science degree, because I loved understanding culture and politics and power dynamics and that sort of thing. I started in technology sales at Cisco Systems, and I always joke that that is CISCO, not SYSCO. I sold networking equipment, not cafeteria food. Those two things get mixed up sometimes. But after about 5 years at Google, or I'm sorry, 5 years at Cisco, I came to Google, where I've spent most of the last 8 years on the education team, working with schools to leverage technology to better serve their students and teachers. Not yet. You're too fast, Tori. Sorry. You're giving away all my secrets already. I'm currently leading the team that serves the charter and private schools in the US with 3 incredible MarketStar folks, some of whom are here today to make me extra nervous. This has been a massive labor of love that started about 2.5 years ago with Tori, actually, and has been one long exercise in speaking up and listening, and you'll hear more about that soon. So let's dive in to some of the ways that I have strengthened my voice to the point where Daisha coerced me into giving this presentation. So I would encourage you not to think of this as like a strict training plan, but just take the pieces that work for you for wherever you are in your journey. And we'll head to the first real slide. All right, y'all. This is where I ground myself when I am feeling overwhelmed or intimidated or in a space where it's just like too much. If you take nothing else away from this presentation, I hope you take this. You specifically have strengths, values, perspectives, and experiences that are beneficial to the conversation. And I mean this both in a personal way, in that what you have to say has merit and you should feel confident in speaking up, but also in a professional way. Businesses like Google and MarketStar can only survive if there is diversity in the perspectives of the people leading the company, building the products, and designing the strategy. So we're going to go to the next slide and we're going to take a quick poll. Does anyone have any idea what these 9 products have in common? other than the fact that they are all Google products and they all have a stunningly consistent color scheme. Oh, Jessica was on it. She knew what I was going to say too. Any thoughts on what these have in common? Good guesses, but nobody's gotten it yet. I do like help make my life easier. That's for sure. All right, I'm going to give it away. Will you go to the next slide? All of these products has over 1 billion monthly active users worldwide, and that is billion with a B. 6 of them have over 2 billion monthly active users, and that means billions of people from every corner of the globe with incredibly varied backgrounds and cultures and experiences are interacting with these products daily. If Google's product teams lack diverse perspectives, whether that's in terms of gender or background or even age, they risk a huge disconnect. Diverse teams are essential to understanding the nuanced needs of these billion users. We head to the next slide. This is getting even more critical in the age of AI. We are seeing headlines like this almost daily. The impact of a homogenous perspective and bias in AI can literally have life-changing consequences. So seriously, speak up. Your perspective is key. And if you can head to the next slide. And I'm sure you're looking at this and you're like, damn, Kendall, I do not feel prepared to start solving for the catastrophic bias in artificial intelligence. And to that I say, girl, me neither. But I wanted to make sure we could all see the business value of a diverse perspective and voice. How do we start recognizing our voices and perspectives and developing them into something that is both actionable and executable? I would love to share a quick story about how my perspective has shaped my career and journey in some unexpected ways, and then we'll talk about ways for you to examine yours as well. So we're going to head to the next slide. Everybody's going to love this one. I want you to picture a little 23-year-old Kendall. I'm headed off for my first day of work at Cisco. My mentor was this like superwoman VP in the commercial space, and she closed these huge deals, and she was big in strategy, and she was working with these major businesses and corporations, and I wanted to be just like her. And imagine my surprise when, rather than being placed in this powerhouse commercial team, I landed in the public sector team, serving K-12 schools and local governments. And y'all, I was pissed. This did not align with this like compelling businesswoman that I saw myself as. These deals were slow and they were small. Where was the prestige? Where were the awards? But like Cisco was smart to slot me there. I had taken education classes. I had background in government from my time at Michigan State. They saw nuance to my perspective that I did not. And don't you hate it when they're right? I leaned in, I learned a ton, and I closed some deals and made some great connections. And in the meantime, I learned something about myself. I am much more happy and more effective when I am mission driven, not commercially driven. So it's probably better I was working with schools in the first place. I especially love working with schools and seeing the impact that my work is able to make on a student's educational experience. I learned this is a core value of mine, and one that probably would have taken me a long time to recognize otherwise. I spent 2 years working with schools and another 2.5 in Austin, Texas, working with the state government agencies, also very value-driven work. And imagine my surprise when I got a recruiter reaching out to me on LinkedIn for a public sector role at my dream company. Go to the next slide. There it is. That's the actual DM, y'all. Always keep your LinkedIn updated. Which leads me to my next tip. Specialize where you can. The very thing that I thought was going to slow down my career actually rocket powered it and got me an invite to interview at my dream company, Google. My knowledge and experience with school boards and government fiscal budgets was the secret key to unlocking the next step in my career. Leaning into my values and perspective helped me take the next big step. And I promise you that my goal today is not to send you away with this like existential crisis about your values and perspective in the world. It does not have to take you 4 years at a company to stubbornly admit that you're more motivated by mission-driven work than corporate budgets. But there are some ways that you can work to identify what makes you unique and valuable with some reflection and introspection. So we're going to go on a little voice finding mission. Okay, so here are a few reflective questions that I like to kind of ask myself. I encourage you to do this quickly. Spend some time just like jotting down some of these. One of them, the first one is my favorite. What is a common assumption or problem in my workplace that I see differently because of my lived experience as blank? And that blank can represent any part of your identity. Being a woman, being a mother, your race, your religion, your generation. These are critically valuable perspectives for both your businesses and your career journey. So, for example, as a woman, I can tell that the way we market this product only targets a specific demographic. What a valuable thing to bring up in a meeting. Finding places to improve and grow fosters opportunity, and it takes the right person to add that perspective and identify it. The next one's also really cool. Think of a time you approached a challenge or solved a problem in a way that felt intuitive or natural to you, but perhaps other people found surprising or innovative. An example for me is I like to focus on building rapport first rather than prioritize immediate task completion. And my team can tell you I'm a certified yapper. I love to talk to people before we jump in. And getting to understand the people inside of a problem, I really do believe leads to a more effective and long-term solution. So lean into those changes. These are ways that you bring something unique to the table. So you'll see a couple of other examples there that may help you identify your unique voice. But the goal here is to quickly surface some specific experiences, skills, or observations that stem from your unique values and perspectives in business and translate them into professional value. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. All right, so now we're grounded in the perspective that comes from our identities and our lived experiences. But how do we get them to listen? So we have to show up, listen, and speak effectively, right? So to start, I have to admit something to you. When I got that LinkedIn message to interview at Google, my first reaction was to say no. I loved the job I was doing. I knew all the people at my company. I knew the products. I knew the commute. I was doing just fine. I had a whole plan for my life. Why would I want to jump into something scary? And do you know what finally got me? You can go to the next slide. You guys can guess. I wanted to see what the office looked like. I had heard all of these stories about the cool Google offices in Austin. And I thought if I took this interview, I might be able to get a sneak peek at the magic. I wanted to see the people in action that were building these billion user products. I wanted to hear what they were talking about and see what was coming on the roadmap. I wanted to be able to listen to the leaders of the industry. My curiosity got the best of me. So I did 6 rounds of interviews. Some were better than others, I will admit. And in the end, I did get to see the office, and it was worth it. They had excellent snacks. But changing jobs was not part of my plan at all. I had a very clear career path laid out at Cisco. I thought I would be a lifer, like some of the people on my team who had been there for 15 plus years. But I also learned that staying curious helped me develop my career and perspective in ways that I didn't expect. You can go to the next slide. Maybe. We can stare at that puppy for a minute. That's okay too. All right, so I took the job. I dove in. This required flexibility in the plan and vision I had for myself. And also, I'm going to pause to say this would not be a women in business event if I did not mention negotiate every job offer that you receive. You deserve the best. I started in the cloud organization, and after about 7 months, moved into the education team that worked with K-12 public schools. You can head to the next slide. I was working with what we call greenfield customers, and these are the people who had no Chromebooks and no workspace. And the only way to be successful with customers who don't want anything to do with you is to understand why they don't want anything to do with you. So I started traveling all over the South Central US, and I'm talking Memphis and Baton Rouge and Amarillo, Texas. I stayed in some really fun places, y'all. And I wanted to meet with customers who were either not a fan of Google or who were not fans of technology in general. And I'm going to date myself. I think this was 2018. So things were a little different then. This is a role where you heard a lot of the most dreaded word, which is no. And if this is a tip from someone in sales, no is just another word. It's just another piece of information on how to move forward. I presented to a lot of half-empty rooms. I sat in a lot of CTOs' offices where they told me that Google was just a consumer solution, or that you couldn't be creative on a Chromebook, or my favorite, that they would never need a device for every student. Q 2020. I lost a lot of deals to Microsoft or Apple, or sometimes just pencil and paper. They didn't want to move off of that. But I also asked a lot of open-ended questions. I leaned into my curiosity. I asked about their goals and their roadblocks, about their security incidents and their long-term visions and what kept them up at night. And the more I listened, the more I learned, I started hearing patterns in the no's. And with that feedback, I created a stronger voice for myself. I was able to create marketing resources and training and cadences that met them where they were and just offered a different perspective. And I started winning. My voice and my perspective developed by listening closely to the no from the people who could actually make me successful. So this no is in two places. Listen to it, but also don't tell yourself no. Don't stop yourself before you get to eat the snacks at the Google office. And don't be afraid to ask for something, even if you think the answer might be no. So I'm going to pause for a second. And I'm going to go to the chat, which I'm loving all the chat coming through. And I'm also so ADD, so I'm trying not to watch it. I know there's so many good things I'm going to read in a minute. But I want to hear from you. What was the last question? When was the last time you asked a big question and you were told no? What did you learn from it? How did you pivot? I want to hear from you. When were you told no recently? And this doesn't count for parents of toddlers who hear no, 200 times before breakfast. Come on, y'all. I know you've been told no recently. It's the best. It teaches you so much about what you're aiming for. Yes, proposing a sales motion change to a client. Perfect. Yes, agreed, Blake. You hear no's all of the time when you're in a sales background. Oh, Brittany, I hate that you were told no to a promotion, but hopefully they steered you in the direction to keep moving towards it. Process changes. Heck yeah. Yep, that's true, Bo. Austin does tell me no almost every day too. But you know what? If we're persistent, maybe we'll get a yes one day. A pay raise. Keep asking. Alicia, never stop asking for those pay raises. I love this. Okay, this is what I was hoping for. I would also encourage you to read some of these answers because this is proof that you can be told no and survive. It is not the end of the world, even though it feels like it sometimes. We hate the silence on the client's end, but it really isn't the end of the world. It's just another piece of information moving forward. Okay, my last point on curiosity and listening, if you can head to the next slide, is making sure you're communicating in a way that your voice can be heard in a noisy world. And this takes part of our listening and observation skills that we just talked about. You want to notice how and why ideas get noticed, because great ideas don't get executed alone. You have to be able to use your voice in a way that it can be heard and received, and that requires some clear communication, stakeholder management, and my favorite, data. And that looks different for every organization. It will vary sometimes even between leaders. I definitely talk to Bo different ways than I talk to Austin. And watch what works. I find it really helpful to watch people around me and take notes on what seems to gain traction, how it's communicated, and questions that arise from voicing an idea. So we're going to head to the next slide so I can give you one example. Okay, one of the most influential leaders in my organization has a very specific format that he likes to receive information in. His is an edited version of this. His is problem, action, impact, result. And everything I bring to him is laid out in that format, from long-term territory plans or simply how to deal with a stuck customer. It is always in that pair format because it helps him navigate that information. Different strokes for different folks because there's lots of different options. And I will make sure to send this out so you guys can see these different storytelling frameworks. But there's also CAR, which is challenge, action, result, STAR, situation, task, action, result. Are we seeing a pattern here? There are lots of different storytelling frameworks that can help your voice be more effectively received. And leveraging these can be as detailed or as simple as the situation calls for. And noticing what's well received by your target audience will give your voice an extra boost. All right, on to the next slide. Your voice is even more amplified when there's data to back it up. Do your research. Find concrete numbers that justify your hypothesis or hypotheses, because we know we all have lots of different ideas. This is honestly, y'all, one of the reasons my team exists at all. I am married to a former charter school teacher, current charter school principal, and I spent a lot of time with him and his colleagues just listening to them talk about the unique challenges of the charter school space. You know, those like whining sessions, I'm going to edit myself, whining sessions where all they want to tell you is like everything that's going wrong. Things are just different there. There are different missions, there's different budgets, expectations, and regulations that are applied to charter schools. There are different ways that things are managed and structured. And then I knew how Google for Education approached the market. Often we prioritized customers based on size and investment in Google products. And I could see the differences in how charter school structure would not align with the current account prioritization. And I had a strong hypothesis on the problem and on the solution, but that could only get me so far. I would bring this up in one-on-ones with my former manager, and she listened to me whine about this a lot, y'all. I'd be like, we're just not doing it right with charter schools. And she helped me kind of fully flesh out the idea, but there really wasn't a path forward until there was a why and a how. We needed the data. So the why in this situation is twofold. The 3.7 million charter school students in the US deserve to have access to the same resources and support that public school students were receiving. But also, and this is what gets noticed, always follow the money, charter schools are a $49 billion industry that we were not capturing with our current setup. That's 7,800 schools that we could be working with more effectively. And that was the why. The how was a little bit more nuanced. Tori knows, Jake knows, he's in the audience. It has evolved over the last 2 years. We've had a growing and changing vendor team. We have an expanding customer list, but none of this would have been possible without bringing in the hard facts to back up my hypothesis that charter schools were worth our time. Okay, next slide. Whew, I feel like we're flying through this. I only have 6 minutes. Okay, I could talk about a million different ways to amplify your voice, but I will end it here. How many of you are parents and have told your kids to watch their tone when they're talking to you? I know I have said it, and I don't even have kids yet, but I have a feeling based on both my husband and my strong voices that we're going to be repeating this a lot for our son. Tone is everything when you're using your voice. Great ideas can sometimes get lost in the emotion, and you should feel passionate when you're using your voice, but make sure you're using that passion to accomplish your goals and not distract from them. We are lucky to live in the era of the greatest tone tool on earth, AI. I use Gemini all of the time to edit the tone and the structure of the messages I'm sending, and I'm talking pings, emails, sometimes even before I ask a question in a meeting, I'll run it through Gemini. I'd be like, how's this going to land? Write out your thoughts and hypotheses and ask Gemini to help you edit. And I like to ask it to make me sound more professional or put it in one of the formats that we talked about earlier. But sometimes I even ask it to make me sound nicer, especially like when I'm having a cranky day. All right, I know we're going fast, and I'm excited that you guys are liking this so far. I'm loving the emojis. Okay, my last point is amplify good ideas and give credit where credit is due. As you develop your voice and your perspective, you will be invited to have a seat at a lot of tables. And of course, you're going to say yes because you're curious, and those tables have great snacks. But you're also going to be surrounded by these smart and cool and innovative people who have perspectives all of their own. You have to be the person that amplifies other great voices and gives credit to great ideas. I think it's a Spider-Man quote or something. With great voice comes great responsibility. If you want to head to the next slide, here are a few strategies. Give it a second. Okay, here are a few strategies that I like to deploy to ensure that good ideas are recognized and heard. And some of them are super direct, like you just restate the idea and attribute it to the ideator. And some of them are more creative, where you get to add your perspective while building on theirs. That one's a big one for my improv folks. They love the yes ands. And some of them just require noticing group dynamics and pulling in people who may not easily be heard. I will caveat that one to facilitate participation. Always be careful with this one. Make sure you're doing this one intentionally and carefully, and you're not just putting somebody on the spot and making them, feel a little quieter than they did before. But having a voice does not mean that you have to be the loudest voice in the room all of the time. Great ideas are built by, say it with me, diverse perspectives. And we can only get to that point when our voices are supportive of others. So here's my challenge for you. In the next week, see if you can deploy one of these strategies or amplify an idea in a different way. This is a skill. It takes practice. So if you commit to doing one this week, I will do it too. And I would love to hear how you're doing it. So if you want to email me and tell me how you amplified an idea, it would just make my whole week. Okay, next slide. Ooh, we got to hurry. We got 2 minutes left. It is critical to give credit where credit is due. It's coming. There we go. Okay, so one of my strong values is mission-driven work. Here's another one. I truly believe that the worst thing you can be professionally is a credit thief. Plagiarizing someone else's idea seems easy in the short term, but it robs you of your authenticity and your integrity. How many of you have been in a meeting when you have heard someone restate another person's idea as their own? I most certainly have. So I love this redirecting credit. I love it. It's kind but direct. Thank you for reiterating that, Tom. I believe Sarah brought that up first. It's a valuable point. Those names have been changed to protect the victims. But I promise when you deploy this, you are going to feel like a justice-seeking vigilante for the rest of the day. You're going to feel so good that you got people their credit. I also love to make sure I reference original work in presentations and research that I do. But my favorite strategy of all time is public shout outs. So will you head to the next slide? This is just a sample of some of the MarketStar folks that I have had the pleasure of working with and who are going to hate having their headshots ripped from LinkedIn and put in a big presentation. But that is how credit works sometimes, folks. I literally could talk for a half hour on each one of these people and the things that I have learned from them. But to keep us all on track, I will just say that if you need someone to connect with at MarketStar who has a strong voice and perspective, these are your people. Jake in the middle, looking so dapper, has forgotten more about the charter school market than I will ever know. He is both excellent at researching and listening to customers in a way that builds true connection. His dedication to my non-public team has made it seriously what it is today. I'm so grateful for Jake. And Arne with her little red bob at the bottom, I love it. I literally have never encountered anyone in my professional life that could outwork Arne. She is an expert ambassador between customers and partners. She has helped me navigate even the most complicated situations. She has a customer-first perspective that cannot be beat. And White Tea Kylie at the top, I've tossed her into the most complex market possible, and she never blinked. She has built models that help her better connect with customers and get them the resources that they need. She is an organization queen, y'all. I mean, the things that I have learned from this girl. And her talents and ambition have accelerated the private school team to unexpected heights. I am seeing we're at time. I could go on and on about LaRocco's empathetic leadership, or Kate's customer connection, or Bo's strategic adaptability, but I will end it here with saying that each one of these people has helped me develop my perspective and voice. It has made me a better leader, a better Googler, and created a better world for our customers. So we're going to head to the next slide quickly. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope you feel like you walked away with a strategy or two to help you speak up and be heard. And we'll go to our favorite last slide, back to the thank you. I appreciate your time and attention today. Go out into the world, use your voice, embrace your curiosity, and lean into the nose, and always follow the snacks. And thank you for being here. This was so fun. Have a fabulous Wednesday.